My daughter abandoned her 5-year-old autistic grandson at my doorstep and never looked back. I raised Noah alone for 12 years while everyone said he'd never succeed. They were wrong. By 16, he'd built something extraordinary worth $3.8 million. Then she came back with a lawyer, with documents, with lies. Our attorney warned we might lose everything. I was terrified. But Noah just smiled and whispered, "Let her talk, Grandpa." I had no idea what my grandson was planning, but I was about to find out why they call some people geniuses. Before I tell you what happened that cold November afternoon, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from. Because this story starts with a knock on my door that changed everything. The November wind cut through the oak trees in my front yard, sending yellow leaves across the porch steps. I was grading papers when I heard the car door slam. Retirement had been peaceful these past months. No lesson plans. Just quiet mornings after 30 years teaching elementary school. Through the window, I watched my daughter Danielle hurrying up the walkway, gripping the hand of a small boy who moved with an odd, rocking gait. Noah, my grandson. I'd seen him maybe twice a year, always brief visits that left me feeling like I was meeting a stranger. "Dad, thank God you're home," Danielle said when I opened the door. She looked exhausted, dark circles shadowing her eyes, hair pulled back messily. "I need a huge favor." Noah stood beside her, tiny in a blue jacket too big for his frame. He was rocking back and forth, heel to toe, hands pressed over his ears despite the quiet afternoon. His eyes stayed fixed on the wooden planks, never lifting to meet mine. "What's going on, sweetheart?" I asked, stepping aside. "Just for the weekend. Dad, please." Her voice carried desperation I'd never heard before. She hefted a small backpack, too small for even a weekend stay. "I need a break. I really need a break." Noah flinched when my refrigerator hummed to life. The gentle tick of my grandfather clock made him press his hands tighter against his head. "Danielle, I don't know anything about he's not that difficult," she interrupted, voice cracking. "He just needs routine. Same breakfast every day, same bedtime. He doesn't like loud noises or being touched unless he starts it. The school says he's autistic, but I think they're wrong. He's just sensitive." Noah had wandered into my living room and crouched in the corner by my bookshelf, making himself small. He hummed softly, a low sound that seemed to comfort him. "How long exactly?" I began. "I'll call you Sunday," Danielle said already, backing toward the door. I left clothes in the backpack. "He likes crackers if he won't eat anything else. And Dad, don't try to make him look at you. He can't handle eye contact." "Danielle, wait." But she was already hurrying down my steps, practically jogging to her car. I watched her taillights disappear down Oak Lane, leaving me standing in my doorway with a 5-year-old boy who seemed as bewildered as I was. Noah remained in the corner, rocking gently, small hands covering his ears. The house felt different already, charged with an energy I didn't understand, filled with needs I didn't know how to meet. I closed the door quietly and looked at my grandson. He was so small, so fragile-looking. Yet there was something about the precise way he'd arranged himself in that corner, the methodical nature of his rocking that suggested a mind working in ways I couldn't fathom. The November wind rattled my windows. Noah's humming continued steady and rhythmic. I stood there watching him, this little boy who'd just been left in my care with nothing but a too small backpack and a list of don'ts. At 62, I thought I'd figured out most of life's challenges. I'd taught hundreds of children, helped them through struggles and celebrated their victories. But standing in my quiet house, watching Noah rock in the corner while autumn leaves swirled outside, I realized my biggest lesson was just beginning. That first night was a disaster. I'd made chicken nuggets for dinner, something I thought all kids liked. Noah took one look at the plate and turned away, pushing it across my kitchen table with the tips of his fingers. I tried pasta. He shook his head. A peanut butter sandwich. Same response. What do you want to eat, buddy? I asked gently. Noah hummed that low sound in his throat and stared at the wall behind me. Finally, I gave him crackers from the box Danielle had mentioned. He ate exactly 3, counted them out carefully, then stopped. Bedtime was worse. When I tried to help him brush his teeth, he screamed, not crying, but a sharp, piercing sound like I was hurting him. I stepped back immediately, hands raised. Okay, I said. Okay, we'll skip it tonight. I tucked him into the guest room bed, but he threw off the blanket immediately. I tried again. Another scream. I left the blanket at the foot of the bed and backed out of the room, feeling like I'd failed some test I didn't understand. He didn't sleep. I could hear him humming all night, that same low melody over and over. Sunday came and went. No phone call from Danielle. By Wednesday, I was at the pediatrician's office with Noah, who sat in the corner chair, rocking while Dr. Thompson reviewed his limited medical records. Has anyone talked to you about getting him properly evaluated? She asked. His mother mentioned autism, but there's no formal assessment here. His mother was supposed to handle that, I said quietly. Dr. Thompson nodded. Well, you're handling it now. That afternoon, I drove to the library and checked out every book they had on autism. I read about sensory processing, about the need for routine, about how these children saw the world differently. Not wrong, just different. I learned that Noah's humming was called stimming, a way of self-regulating. His rocking wasn't nervousness. It was comfort. I started paying attention instead of trying to fix things. I noticed Noah needed the same breakfast every morning. Scrambled eggs and toast cut corner to corner. Nothing touching on the plate. I learned the route to the grocery store had to be exactly the same, or he'd cover his ears and rock frantically in the car seat. I discovered he couldn't handle being touched unless he initiated it first. Most importantly, I learned to watch. 2 weeks after Noah arrived, I found him in the living room at dawn. He was on the floor with a bin of toy cars I'd bought him, arranging them in a perfect line. But it wasn't random. As I sat on the couch and observed, I realized he'd organized them by color, but in a way so subtle I had to squint to see the differences. Red car, then one slightly more orange, then one more orange than that, then yellow-green, creating a gradient so precise it took my breath away. The progression was flawless, each transition seamless. That's amazing. Noah, I whispered. He didn't look at me, but his humming grew softer, more content. He kept arranging, adding more cars to extend the rainbow across my hardwood floor. I sat there watching him work this 5-year-old boy, creating something beautiful and complex while most kids his age were still learning to tie their shoes. His mind wasn't broken or delayed. It was extraordinary. The phone rang that evening. I grabbed it hoping. Travis, it's Danielle. Thank God, I said. When are you coming to get him? Long pause. I can't do this anymore, Dad. He's yours now. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, looking at Noah, arranging magnetic letters on my refrigerator in patterns I couldn't decipher. He wasn't just different. He was remarkable, and he was mine to protect. By spring 2013, our mornings had found their rhythm. Noah, now 8, would appear in the kitchen at exactly 7:15. He'd climb onto his chair, always the same chair, second from the left, and wait for breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, cut corner to corner, nothing touching on the plate. His yellow plastic cup positioned precisely to the right. His language had been developing slowly but steadily. Single words at first. Eggs, toast, school. Then short phrases. More milk. Too loud. Time to go. His speech therapist said he was making remarkable progress. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Noah finished his eggs and reached for his notebook, opening it to a page covered with his careful markings. Circles, lines, tick marks, tracking something only he understood. He picked up his pencil and began writing. Then he stopped, set down his pencil, looked at his notebook for a long moment. "Grandpa Travis?" His voice was clear, measured. I looked up from my coffee. "Yes, buddy." "Why did my mom leave?" The question hit me like a physical blow. In 4 years, Noah had never asked about Danielle directly. He'd accepted her absence as part of his routine, his normal. But now he was looking at me with those serious brown eyes, waiting for an answer I didn't know how to give. I set down my coffee cup, hands suddenly unsteady. "What makes you ask that?" "Noah." He tapped his pencil against his notebook. "Other kids at school have moms who pick them up, who come to programs. Mine doesn't come." Why, the pain in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. This brilliant, sensitive boy had been processing his abandonment for 4 years, trying to make sense of something senseless. I moved my chair closer to his, careful not to crowd him. "Your mom said she couldn't handle taking care of you. She said it was too hard for her." Noah nodded once, processing this with the same careful attention he gave everything else. "Was it because I'm different?" "Yes." I said, because Noah needed truth even when it hurt. "But Noah, being different isn't wrong. Your mom couldn't see how special you are. That was her problem, not yours." He picked up his pencil again and wrote something in his notebook. A single word I couldn't read upside down. Then he closed the notebook and finished his milk. "Okay," he said simply. That was it. No tears, no tantrum, no further questions. Just that quiet acceptance that broke my heart and amazed me simultaneously. Noah had asked his question, received his answer, and filed it away in whatever complex system he used to organize the world. I sat there watching him clear his plate. Always the same routine, always the same careful movements, and felt the weight of what he'd just shared. This wasn't just about language development. Noah was beginning to understand his place in the world, to recognize what he'd lost and what he'd gained. The phone rang as I loaded the dishwasher. The caller ID showed Riverside Elementary School. "Mr. Anderson, this is Principal Harris. We need to schedule a meeting about Noah's placement for next year. There are some concerns we need to discuss." I looked at Noah, still sitting at the table with his notebook, and felt my protective instincts sharpen. "Here we go," I thought. The fluorescent lights in Riverside Elementary's conference room hummed overhead as I arranged my binder on the long table. 3 days of preparation had gone into this meeting. Test scores, progress reports, therapy notes, everything to prove Noah belonged in a mainstream classroom. Principal James Harris entered with Mrs. Jenkins, Noah's 4th grade teacher, and Dr. Patel, the school psychologist. They settled across from me with their folders, creating an invisible battle line. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Anderson," Principal Harris began. "We want what's best for Noah." "So do I replied, opening my binder. Mrs. Jenkins leaned forward. "Noah's a sweet boy, but he struggles socially. He doesn't interact with peers during group work. He sits alone at lunch. Yesterday in music class, he covered his ears and rocked because the instruments were too loud. He has sensory processing issues." I said. "That's documented." "Which brings us to our point," Principal Harris interjected. "Our resource room offers a smaller setting, fewer distractions, students who understand his challenges, students who can't keep up academically." I said flatly. "That's not Noah." "Dr. Patel opened her folder. "Noah's social skills assessment shows significant delays. His IQ testing was inconclusive because he refused to finish timed sections because timed tests create anxiety for him." I pulled out my first document. This is Noah's reading comprehension test from last month. 98% at a 7th grade level. I slid the paper across the table. Mrs. Jenkins frowned at it. Math assessment. I continued stacking more papers. 100% on fifth-grade material. Writing samples showing complex sentences. Advanced vocabulary. Therapy notes documenting his progress and emotional regulation. I kept adding evidence. Noah has come further in 4 years than anyone predicted. Not because he was hidden away with low expectations, but because people believed he could do more. Mrs. Jenkins shifted uncomfortably. It's not about expectations. It's about appropriate support. Then provide that support in his current classroom. I said firmly. Noise-canceling headphones for music class. Extra time for transitions. A quiet corner when overwhelmed. That's accommodation, not segregation. The word hung in the air. Principal Harris cleared his throat. Mr. Anderson, we understand your frustration. No, you don't. I leaned forward, drawing on 30 years of classroom experience. I've seen what happens when we give up on kids because they don't fit neat little boxes. Noah doesn't need to be hidden. He needs to be challenged, supported, and included. Doctor. Patel spoke up, under idea. Noah has the right to the least restrictive environment. But if he continues to struggle, he won't struggle if you give him the tools he needs. I pulled out my final document. This boy went from nonverbal to asking complex questions about his life. He organizes information in ways that amaze his therapists. He just learns differently. The room fell silent. Principal Harris exchanged glances with Mrs. Jenkins. We'll draft an IEP with those accommodations, he said finally. But if Noah continues to have difficulties, he won't, I said, though my heart was pounding. Give him a chance to prove you wrong. Walking to my car afterward, I felt drained but victorious. Noah would stay in his regular classroom with supports instead of segregation. That evening, I found him in the school's computer lab during aftercare, staring intently at the screen while other kids played outside. His fingers moved across the keyboard with surprising confidence, navigating through what looked like educational software with focused precision. Something was stirring in that brilliant mind of his. The summer Noah turned 13, he discovered a whole new world on my old desktop computer. It started innocently enough. School was out. And while other kids his age were at baseball camp or swimming lessons, Noah spent his days in what used to be my home office. I'd moved my old computer there after retirement, mainly using it for email and the occasional online recipe search. Noah had always been drawn to patterns and systems. So, when he stumbled across a Python programming tutorial on the library's website, something clicked. I found him one morning, hunched over the keyboard, his notebook open beside him as he carefully copied lines of code from the screen. What are you working on? Buddy, I asked, setting a glass of orange juice next to the mousepad. Learning Python, he said without looking up. It's a programming language. You can make the computer do things. I watched him type, his fingers moving with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else. The screen showed a simple program that calculated basic math problems. Nothing fancy, but Noah's eyes were bright with excitement in a way I hadn't seen since he'd arranged those toy cars by color years ago. Is this for school? I asked. No, I just want to learn it. That became Noah's entire summer routine. Every morning after breakfast, he'd disappear into the office. I'd bring him sandwiches at lunch, which he'd eat without looking away from the screen. His yellow cup would sit beside the keyboard, half empty and forgotten, as he lost himself in loops and variables and functions I couldn't begin to understand. By July, he was showing me simple programs he'd created, a calculator that could handle complex equations, a basic guessing game where the computer picked a random number, a file organizer that could sort documents by date or name. This one finds all the files on your computer that are the same, he explained. running a program that scanned through folders, like if you saved the same photo twice by accident. I was amazed. My 13-year-old grandson was creating tools that actually solved problems. The programs weren't just exercises from tutorials anymore. They were Noah's own ideas born from his unique way of seeing patterns and organization. "Noah, this is incredible," I said, watching him demonstrate another program. "You taught yourself all this?" He nodded, already turning back to the screen. "The computer does exactly what you tell it to do. No surprises, no changes unless you change the code." There was something profound in that statement, though I didn't fully understand it at the time. For Noah, programming offered the same comfort as his morning routine or his color-coded notebooks, a world where rules were consistent and logic prevailed. One evening in late August, I found him organizing my old teaching files on the computer. He'd created a program that sorted them by subject grade level and date, turning years of chaotic digital storage into neat, accessible folders. "You didn't have to do that." I said. "I wanted to," he replied. "It was messy. Now it's organized." As summer wound down, Noah's curiosity began expanding beyond programming tutorials. He started asking questions about our family, about old documents I might have stored away. "Grandpa Travis, do you have papers from when I was little? Like from when Mom brought me here." The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged, but I could see the wheels turning in that analytical mind. Just curious about the timeline when things happened. I showed him to the garage where I kept boxes of old records, tax documents, medical files, school papers, the accumulated paperwork of a lifetime. Noah's eyes lit up as he surveyed the boxes, the same way they had when he'd first discovered programming. "Can I look through these sometime?" he asked. "Of course, buddy. They're just gathering dust anyway." I had no idea I just handed him the raw materials for something extraordinary. By the time Noah turned 16, his bedroom had transformed into something resembling a tech startup. 3 monitors dominated his desk, displaying code business websites and video calls with clients. What had started as a summer hobby with Python had evolved into something sophisticated. Noah had taught himself multiple programming languages, database management, and business principles through online courses. The COVID pandemic created unexpected opportunities. As businesses scrambled to go digital, there was massive demand for software solutions that could handle remote work and online operations. "I've been getting emails from companies," Noah told me one morning over breakfast. He was 16 now, voice deeper manner, more confident, but still ate his eggs and toast the same way since he was 5. "What kind of companies?" I asked. "Security firms, banks, insurance companies. They need software that can verify digital documents are authentic, prove that contracts and certificates haven't been tampered with." I nodded, not fully understanding the technical details, but recognizing the excitement in Noah's voice, the same spark from when he first discovered programming. His first real client was a Chicago security company that paid $15,000 for a software license. I nearly choked on my coffee. 15,000. "Noah, that's more than some people make in a year." He shrugged with typical matter-of-factness. "It solves a problem they couldn't solve themselves." Now other companies want similar solutions. Requests poured in. Noah would take calls in his room, speaking with business executives in a calm, professional voice that amazed me. He explained complex technical concepts without dumbing them down, somehow making corporate decision-makers understand exactly what his software could do. "The algorithm compares digital fingerprints across multiple verification layers," I'd hear him say through his door. "It catches forgeries that human reviewers miss 99% of the time." I bought him better equipment, faster computers, professional monitors, a proper office chair. Noah accepted these upgrades with quiet gratitude, immediately expanding his capabilities. The pandemic year was intense. While former classmates attended virtual high school, Noah had graduated early and was running a one-person tech company. He'd work until 2 in the morning, sleep until 9, then start again. I'd bring meals and find him deep in concentration, fingers flying across keyboards as he managed multiple projects simultaneously. The offers grew larger. Companies wanted exclusive rights. Corporate fraud prevention firms wanted to license it for entire operations. Numbers jumped from thousands to hundreds of thousands. I want to sell it completely, Noah told me in early 2022, showing me contracts that made my head spin. I don't want to manage licensing or support or updates. Just sell it and be done. Are you sure? I asked, looking at figures that could pay more long-term. I'm sure, he said with that decisive tone I'd learned meant his mind was made up. I want to move on to other projects. In March 2022, Noah sold his verification software system to Global Tech Security for $3.8 million. $3.8 million. I stared at the bank statement, unable to process the number. My grandson, abandoned on my doorstep as a frightened 5-year-old, was now a 16-year-old millionaire. The local news got wind of the story. A reporter named Rachel Thompson called wanting to do a feature on the local autistic teen who created revolutionary security software. We'd love to interview Noah, she said. This is such an inspiring story. I looked at Noah, expecting him to decline. He hated attention, avoided crowds, preferred quiet routines, but he surprised me. Okay, he said simply. I'll do it. 2 weeks after the news story aired, our doorbell rang on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the kitchen cleaning up lunch dishes when the chime echoed through the house. Noah was in his room, probably working on one of his new projects. The interview with Rachel Thompson had gone well. Noah had been articulate and calm, explaining his software in terms that made sense to viewers. The story had generated congratulatory calls from neighbors and former teaching colleagues. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the front window, I saw a sleek black sedan parked in my driveway. 2 figures stood on my porch, a woman in an expensive gray suit and a man in a dark business suit carrying a leather briefcase. When I opened the door, my world tilted. Hello, Dad. Danielle, my daughter, standing on my doorstep after 12 years of silence, looking polished and professional in a way I'd never seen before. Her hair was styled, her makeup perfect, her smile practiced and cold. I'm Jonathan Hayes, the man beside her said smoothly, extending his hand. Mrs. Anderson's attorney. We'd like to speak with you about Noah's situation. My heart started hammering. His situation. Danielle's smile tightened. May we come in? This is important. I should have said no. Should have closed the door, but shock had frozen my ability to think clearly. I stepped back, and they walked into my living room, the same room where Noah had spent countless hours arranging toys and doing homework, where we'd shared quiet evenings and small victories. Now it felt like enemy territory. Mr. Anderson Hayes began settling into my armchair like he owned it. We're here to discuss custody and financial guardianship arrangements for Noah. Custody I managed. But he's 16 years old. Hayes interrupted smoothly. Still a minor, which means his mother retains legal parental rights and can petition for custody, especially given the significant financial assets involved. The words hit me like a physical blow. Noah was still a minor. In all the excitement of his success, I'd somehow forgotten that fundamental fact. He wouldn't turn 17 for months. Danielle leaned forward, her voice taking on a tone I remembered from her childhood, sweet on the surface, manipulative underneath. Dad, I know you've done a wonderful job raising Noah, but he needs his mother now, especially with all this money and attention. A 16-year-old can't handle that kind of responsibility alone. Hayes opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. These show that Mrs. Anderson has maintained legal parental rights and has been involved in Noah's care from a distance. She's documented her financial support and communication over the years. He spread papers across my coffee table, official-looking documents with stamps and signatures, financial records showing regular money transfers, communication logs documenting phone calls and visits. All of it looked legitimate, professional, convincing. All of it was impossible. "Those are fake," I said, but my voice sounded weak, even to me. "They're properly notarized and filed," Hayes replied calmly. "Unless you can prove otherwise. They establish Mrs. Anderson's continued parental involvement. Since Noah is a minor with substantial assets, the court will likely grant her petition for custody and financial guardianship." My hands were shaking. 12 years. 12 years of raising Noah alone. And now Danielle wanted to waltz back in because he had money, and legally she might be able to do it. "Noah," I called out, my voice cracking. He appeared in the doorway, still wearing his headphones around his neck. He looked at Danielle. Really looked at her for the first time since he was 5 years old. His expression was completely neutral, unreadable. "Hello." "Noah," Danielle said, her voice suddenly warm and maternal. "You've grown so much. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished." Noah studied her for a long moment. Then he walked over and sat beside me on the couch. "Let her keep talking, Grandpa," he said quietly, his voice calm and steady. "I want to hear everything she has to say." I stared at him, confused and terrified. We were about to lose everything we'd built together, and Noah wanted her to continue lying. But there was something in his eyes, a glint of calculation I'd never seen before. He had a plan. The county courthouse felt like a cathedral of justice, all marble columns and soaring ceilings. I sat beside Michelle Rodriguez, our family attorney, hands trembling as Danielle took the witness stand. She looked every inch the concerned Mother Navy dress, minimal jewelry, hair, suggesting both professionalism and maternal warmth. Jonathan Hayes had coached her well. Judge Elizabeth Carter, sharp-eyed with gray hair, reviewed the documents. "Mrs. Anderson, please describe your involvement in Noah's life over the past 12 years. Danielle's voice was steady, convincing. "Your Honor, I've maintained consistent contact despite difficult circumstances. I visited monthly when possible, sent financial support, regularly called to check on his progress." She provided specific dates. December 2012 claimed birthday visit. April 2015, supposedly sent $500. May 2018 academic progress call. All lies. Detailed documented lies that sounded believable. Hayes presented financial records, communication logs, even photographs that seemed to show Danielle at family gatherings that never happened. The evidence was sophisticated, terrifyingly convincing. Judge Carter looked thoughtful. I felt sick. Michelle presented our evidence, school records, medical appointments, therapy sessions. But our paperwork looked amateur compared to Danielle's polished presentation. "Mr. Anderson," Judge Carter said, "while your dedication is clear without formal guardianship papers, Mrs. Anderson's parental rights remain intact. We were losing." Then Noah stood up. "Your Honor, may I present evidence?" Judge Carter looked surprised. "This is highly irregular. I have proof that my mother's documents are fraudulent," Noah said calmly, pulling out his laptop. "I built a verification system that can prove their authenticity." Hayes objected. "This wasn't disclosed in discovery because you presented fraudulent documents 6 weeks ago." Noah replied steadily. "I've been analyzing them since then." Judge Carter studied Noah with interest. "Proceed." Noah connected his laptop to the courtroom display. Danielle's documents appeared on screen. "These claim to be from 2012 through 2020, Noah said with calm authority. "But digital metadata shows they were created 6 weeks ago, right after my news story aired." He displayed creation dates, file properties, editing history, all recent, all fake. Signature analysis reveals additional discrepancies. Noah showed Danielle's real signatures from my records, then ran his verification program. Pressure patterns don't match. Letter formation is inconsistent. These signatures were forged, Hayes objected. Metadata can be manipulated. Not with blockchain verification, Noah interrupted. Displaying technical proof. Each document connects to a verification chain. Alterations break the entire system. He methodically demolished every piece of Danielle's evidence. No visits, no phone calls, no money sent. Not $1 in 12 years. Danielle's confident demeanor cracked as Noah's technology stripped away every lie. Judge Carter leaned forward. This verification system, it's legitimate, yes, Your Honor. Global Tech Security purchased it for $3.8 million, specifically for its accuracy in detecting document fraud. The courtroom fell silent. Judge Carter looked at Danielle with cold disapproval. Mrs. Anderson, I find your testimony not credible and your documentation fraudulent. Full custody and guardianship is awarded to Travis Anderson. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for perjury and fraud investigation. The gavel struck. Danielle made a choking sound. Jonathan Hayes looked sick, but Noah just calmly packed up his laptop, the same methodical movements he'd used since childhood. Outside the courthouse, I finally found my voice. Noah, how did you? I've been documenting our life since I was 8, he said simply. Every receipt you kept, every calendar entry, every bank statement. When she came back, I knew she'd lie. I just had to let her create enough false evidence to prove the fraud. I stared at my grandson, this brilliant strategic mind who'd been protecting us for years without my knowing. You planned this whole thing. Noah nodded once. I knew she'd come back someday. Money makes people do predictable things. He'd saved us all. 6 months after the trial, I stood in Noah's new office, watching something beautiful unfold. The space was small, but purposeful. 6 desks arranged in a circle, each occupied by someone wearing headphones, fingers moving across keyboards with focused precision. What struck me wasn't the technology, but the quiet concentration, the sense of belonging that filled the room. Mr. Anderson, a familiar voice called out. Michael Chen removed his headphones, smiling broadly. Michael, one of my former students from 20 years ago, a boy the school system had written off as too distracted. Now he was Noah's lead quality tester, his attention to detail invaluable. Noah says I see patterns others miss, Michael said, gesturing to his screen. Just like you told the principal back in 4th grade. I wasn't broken, just different. Noah appeared beside me, moving with quiet confidence. At 16, nearly 17 now, he carried himself like someone who'd learned that actions spoke louder than words. We're expanding, he told me. 3 more hires next month, all neurodivergent. What others see as disabilities, I see as specialized abilities. That evening, over dinner at my kitchen table, Noah set down his fork and looked at me directly. I need to tell you something, he said. I waited, recognizing the tone that meant something important was coming. I know what you gave up for me. I heard you turning down that Europe trip with your teacher friends because you couldn't leave me. I saw you pass up opportunities, relationships, adventures, all for a kid who couldn't even say thank you properly. My eyes filled. Noah, I'm saying it now, he continued. Thank you for seeing something in me when no one else could. For fighting battles I didn't know were happening. For believing I was worth the investment. I reached across the table and for the first time in years, Noah didn't pull away when I took his hand. You were worth every single day, I whispered. We became something extraordinary, he corrected. This isn't just my success, it's ours. Outside, autumn leaves drifted past the same window where I'd watched Danielle disappear 12 years ago. But now, instead of abandonment, I saw possibility. 3 months ago, I'd run into Danielle at the grocery store. She was volunteering at the Autism Resource Center as part of her community service, learning about things she should have learned 16 years ago. We didn't speak, but I saw something new in her eyes, understanding, maybe regret. Noah's company now employs 12 people, all neurodivergent, all thriving in ways traditional workplaces never allowed. He's proven that different doesn't mean less. It often means more. The greatest gift we can give anyone is the patience to let them bloom in their own time. Love isn't about changing someone. It's about seeing who they truly are and helping them become it. So, here's my question for you. Who in your life needs someone to believe in them the way I believed in Noah? Don't wait for tomorrow. Start today, because every person has something extraordinary inside them, waiting for the right person to help them find it. Looking back on this journey, I've learned that God doesn't make mistakes. He makes miracles in disguise. When Noah first arrived on my doorstep, I thought my quiet retirement was over. I had no idea God was giving me the greatest purpose of my life. This true story taught me that love isn't measured in grand gestures, but in daily choices. Every morning I chose to see Noah's potential instead of his challenges. Every school meeting where I fought for his rights. Every quiet evening when he arranged his toys in perfect patterns, showing me a mind that worked differently but brilliantly. The specialists said Noah would never succeed. They were wrong. God had bigger plans. This true story proves that, with patience and unconditional love, any child can achieve the extraordinary. Noah didn't just become a millionaire. He became a beacon of hope for others like him. These grandpa stories matter because they remind us that family isn't just about blood. It's about commitment. When Danielle abandoned Noah, I could have given up. Instead, God gave me strength to become the father Noah needed. These grandpa stories show that sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest blessings. The final lesson from this true story: never underestimate what someone can achieve when they have one person who believes in them completely. God works through ordinary people like me to create extraordinary outcomes. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment about your own experiences with special needs children. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring grandpa stories that prove love always wins.